What is going on? How's everybody doing today? So, I'm going to do something a little different today. This is going to be a little bit of a Q&A, and what we're going to do, though, is I'm going to actually build one of these Telecaster control plates that you see here that we have on our website. We're going to do this from start to finish. For those of you that don't know, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this content on the website, on the product page, so that if you have any questions, hopefully it covers most of them. I'm going to go through some commonly asked questions about this product in particular, and then we're actually going to build it from scratch so that if you don't want to purchase this and you just go buy your own parts and do it in your own guitar, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks about how to do it yourself if you end up not purchasing it from me. So, a couple of different things there. We're going to kind of go through it, and then I'm going to go back and answer questions, because for those that find this on the website and want to watch it, I want it to be quicker to the point. Okay, so that just kind of gives you an idea. But you can go to the link in the description, and you can buy this loaded Telecaster control plate with the knobs and everything. There is also going to be a link to the soldering course, because when we get into the how to solder this stuff together later, there's that as well. And then people usually ask me about the tools that I'm using, so I left links to the soldering iron and the solder and stuff like that. Okay, and also, if you're into this kind of content and you want to see it with pickups or anything else, please let me know in the comments, because this is kind of fun for me to make. So let's put this computer on Do Not Disturb so it stops dinging. And let's dig into a couple of the questions that we commonly get. The first one is, will this Telecaster control plate fit my guitar? The reason that question comes up a lot of times is because the depth of the parts. So some import guitars, some import older Squiers especially, will have a little hump in the middle of the control cavity that limits the depth of what you can put in there. And sometimes this round switch, instead of the square box, the one that comes in some of the import guitars, doesn't fit. So what you might have to do, if you have that little lump and this doesn't drop all the way into the guitar, is you might have to actually Dremel out that little spot that that goes in the middle so that you can have the full depth available. I don't know why they do that. It's just some sort of CNC sort of issue. I thought I told you to be quiet, computer. So that's the only kind of fitment issue that sometimes we have. Will it fit in the guitar? There is that. Okay, the other question that comes up commonly is, should I order the knobs and the control plate and switch tip and everything, or can I just get the control wiring by itself? You can get it both ways. Also, I have not added this to the website yet. I will probably add it later today, but if you want your controls flipped reverse, we will do that too. Just put a note on the order and I'll make those controls flipped for you so that you can have, the switch in the back and the volume up front, instead of having the switch up front and the volume in the back. Just ask for it in the notes and I'll do it. No problem, no extra charge, no big deal at all. I will probably add it to a little drop-down thing so that it makes it easier for me to know what you want, obviously. But for now, just put a note on there and I'll do that for you. Should you order the plate and the knobs? Most import guitars, the holes in the control plate are 7 millimeters because the import pots are 7 millimeters. So oftentimes what you'll have to do if you and the CTS and the Bourne's pots we use, we'll get into what we use in a minute for what builds, but the CTS pots oftentimes, well, all of them are 3/8, this bushing that goes through the hole, instead of 7 millimeters, so it's too big. So what you have to do on a lot of import control plates is drill the hole out a little bigger. If you do this, if you choose to do it, it's no big deal, you can do it. Use like a step bit or a reamer bit. If you use a regular spiral drill bit, oftentimes what will happen is the drill bit will actually grab it and it'll cause a bunch of burrs on the inside. It'll be super ugly. Sometimes it'll rip it out of your hand. You'll hurt yourself. You might do damage to the control plate while you do it. So use a reamer bit or a stepper bit to do that. Oftentimes that makes it a lot easier. If you don't want to fiddle with that, you can order it with the control plates and the knobs. The other thing is that these, again, are the 1/4 inch. Now, these are 1/4 inch splined knobs. So that means that most of your import knobs won't fit this because these are the proper, the upgraded parts. And so you'll need to have different diameter knobs. So if you're going from a 7mm import style guitar to a proper, like, American style built situation like this, then you probably should get the knobs and the plate and everything. So just a couple of tips there that I would mention. For those of you that are just joining us, we will get to your questions. I want to go through this because this material will be on the website for people to reference, so I want to kind of be quick and to the point. Okay, let's talk about what pots and caps you should get. This is a big question that we get on I get emails on this every day. We sell 3 or 4 of these a day, so we get a lot of emails about what pots or caps should I get. Stock pots and caps for a Telecaster are 250K CTS. I use the vintage style ball bearing high tolerance ones. They're pretty sweet. And many people will want to put like a humbucker in the neck position or a P90 in the neck position. At that point, personally, I like to switch to a 500K pot. So we use Bournes for 500K pots because their 500K pots are better, in my opinion, and also availability is easier for them. They do have a lower, these are 500s, they do have a lower like a effort to them, which is kind of nice. So if you're doing, especially if you do the flip control and you're doing like a volume swell, they're super sweet. And the and we also have left-handed pots available if you're left-handed. Just FYI, I think only in 250 though. So let's talk about, so if you're going to split it and you're going to put this in a humbucker guitar, like a Fender Performer with the 2 humbuckers, get 500K pots, no big deal. We can switch that out. Or if it's normal, get 250. Personally, I like putting 500s in a lot of stuff. I'm not necessarily one who subscribes to the whole humbuckers for 500 for 250. If you want a little more clarity and you want to bump that mid-range up a little bit, get 500s. Do that. That's the key. If you want to bump some more, if you want a little bit more high end and you want to bump that whole curve kind of more mid-rangey, get 500s. That'll work. If you want to kind of mute it down and have a little bit darker tone, like more traditional Teletone, get 250s. That's basically what I would tell you. If you're going to order our Dylan Talks Tone T90s, the ones that are like the little P90 deal, I would put 500s with those. That would be my preference. Or any of the other humbucker style stuff, I would get those with 500s. So those are a couple. Oh, capacitor. 15s are stock Fender. We have 22, 33, and 47 available. If you're going to do humbuckers, I would go with 33s, just kind of like a regular, like a Les Paul sort of. If you want a little more range on your tone knob, oftentimes I find that with a 15, I turn the volume down or the tone down and it doesn't do a lot. So I like to go higher. So I'm a 33 to 47 guy, but also remember that does change the whole curve of everything, even when the volume is on 10. That's a myth that we've busted many times on this channel, that even at 10, kind of changes things just a little bit. So if you're a really traditional Tele guy and you just want to upgrade, stick with the 15s. If you want to experiment a little bit more, know that it's going to change the tone curve on your pot as you go from 22, 33, 47. And it's also going to change just a little bit that top end, even with the volume on 10. So a couple of things to remember when you are choosing which pots you want to put on your guitar. Very cool. So let's go ahead. What I'm going to do now, those are the questions that we oftentimes get on almost every email every day, like a lot of emails a day. So let's go ahead, and if you're still with us to this point and you want to dive into this a little deeper, I'm going to go ahead and answer the questions that have come in now through the chat, because hopefully maybe those will be helpful to others that are ordering this product from us. And then after we answer this batch of questions, we're going to actually build one of these from scratch. It's going to take me about 10 or 15 minutes and let you answer some questions concerning that. And I'm going to give you some little pointers if you're going to build your own, how you can do it. So let's go ahead and go through these comments. Is there such a pot that would push-pull 250 to 500? Not really. Isn't left and right-handed pots just how they're connected? Yeah, but the taper, if it's an audio taper, the taper is different. What about a plate with 3 holes, volume, tone, and 3-way toggle? What I would recommend is going on eBay and buying a blank one and drilling your own holes for that. I do not want to do that. I should mention too, if you are a Patreon member, there is a whole thing over there with a bunch of wiring diagrams, including 4-way stuff. Also, when you order it from us, we give you a little card that you can scan that goes to a private page on the website that shows you, once you've ordered from us, what all the diagrams for all the pickups, for all the wiring possibilities that most people use. So those will be available to you if you order from us. Even if you order pickups. Let's see. Okay. Well, this is cool. So let's go ahead and we're going to build one as we go. And I'm going to show you a couple of tricks here. I've got another camera angle here when we get close-up stuff, but there's a few things that I want to talk about ahead of time. So now let's dive into if you're going to build your own. CTS pots have this little tab on here that gives you a preset depth. I don't like the preset depth. I think it's too deep. I think it makes the knob stick up too far. So I don't do that. I double nut. So when you order just wiring from us or this kit, this total assembled thing, I include enough stuff to double nut it. And I think it's more secure. And I think it looks nicer because you can really set that depth how you want, which I think is really kind of fun. Yeah, that's nice. So let's go ahead and set our depth. I'm going to show you how to put the knobs on a telly properly, or the way I do it anyway. I don't know if properly is the right word, but see, so now I can use that back nut to set the proper depth, because sometimes just because of the thread count on these things, you got to adjust it a little. Yeah, that one needs to be just a little deeper. It's like just the thread count, how it's turned on there, can affect it just a touch. So, because we want everything to look nice when it's done. Attention to detail. Nobody looks inside your guitar. Nobody should care. But you should feel good about it and know that it's right. So, let's make it right. All right. We use Oak Grigsby switches, the same ones that like a Fender Custom Shop uses. An American Standard, whatever they call them these days. So, interesting thing about a Telecaster switch. I've had people ask me, you know, I've accidentally put them in here both ways. It doesn't really matter which way the switch goes in because they are symmetrical. I don't know if you know this or not, but 3-way switches, 4-way switches, and 5-way switches, like this one, are actually 2 switches, one on each side. And the reason you have to bridge them on a Strat and on a Telly is to make use of both sides, because you're actually using 2 switches. They're 2 in 1. Kind of interesting. Alright, so we've got our components installed here. I'm going to go ahead and put the knobs on too, and just set this down. We'll put our switch tip on. Make sure we don't have any plastic burrs. Sometimes when they mold these switches, there's little plastic burrs, and I like to just take a pocket knife and clean them up and make them nice. Alright, So let's get into knob fitment. And for that, we are going to go to camera 2. So let's move my head out of the way down here. Okay, so for knob fitment, how do you put knobs on a guitar? So all of the knobs that we use are split shaft knurled, okay? And a traditional telly is going to be smooth shaft. The reason I do it this way is because I do not want to have to stock a bajillion of parts, all kinds of stuff for all kinds of guitars. So instead, we use these, but I'm going to show you how to do this. If you just have the knurled knobs with the split and you want to put a set screw deal on there, what you want to do is you want to put it on the knob on the shaft so that the set screw splits the shaft, so that when you screw it in, it kind of puts pressure on it like this. It doesn't break it. It's not super strong. It's just a little, like a little pressure to friction hold it on there. So what you would do is you would put it on here and then you would tighten the screw. That set screw would actually, it's got a little cone on the end of it, and it would go into that split, spread that apart a little bit. If you did this wrong, and if you did it this way, and you tightened up the screw, it would smash that, and then it would do damage to the pot, because then these ones are a little bit better because they're brass, but like on the Bourne's ones, they're aluminum, and it can actually break it. So just know that if you smash this gap together, it can cause you problems. So put the screw so that it goes in between there. When we build these, I use a brass sleeve that goes on there. And then this goes on the outside. The set screw might be too far in. Okay. But I still will put it lined up with the slot so that it still does not smash, because you don't want to smash it. And I run it down and then lift it up just a little bit. These knobs that we use have insets on the bottom so that it can go down over the nut and not give you any kind of clearance problems. But I like to pull it up just a little bit so that it does not scrape or give you any kind of like bad friction, because you want it to be smooth. That screw is too tight, so I'll do that. Line it up. Push it all the way down, then pull it up just a little bit. And now we have very nice and very even, flat across the top, very minimal gap above the plate itself, super nice and neat. Okay? All right. Let's go ahead and answer another batch of questions, just in case, because now we're going to get into soldering. Looks like we are good. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get into the soldering portion of this situation. All right. So, I'll leave a link in the description to the soldering iron that I use, and it is a Heiko soldering iron, and I use Kester 6040 solder. There's a link to that down there also. And if you don't know how to solder, there's a link to a soldering course that is very good that people really like. Okay, first things first, we're going to go ahead and attach our capacitor. We're going to use a 15 on this one, 250K pots. This is going to just be a really stock kind of Telecaster upgrade setup. So what I do is I put the capacitor all the way through, in case you're wondering, An orange drop cap can take a lot of heat, so that does not hurt that cap. Paper and oil one, not so much. For that, I would put an alligator clip between where you solder and the component so it kind of sinks off some of the heat, but with an orange drop, we don't need to do that. I clip off the leads, the extra leads, and I set them to the side because we are going to use them. In fact, we're going to use one right now. So, sometimes these switches get a little goofy. So what I do is I use one of the capacitor leads, kind of bend it on through there like so, and I use that for my jumper for my tele switch. When you're soldering a tele switch or any kind of blade switch, do not use too much solder, because what can happen is the solder can drip down into the switch and jam up your switch, and you can't really get it out with any effective to any effective level. You've pretty much just ruined your switch if you put too much solder and it goes down in there. Clip this off nice and clean. Bam. Alright, now we'll take the other one. Let's do this first. Let's do this the other way. And we'll take a white piece of wire. You can use whatever color you want, just make sure you keep track. Well, this one doesn't really matter, but bend it over, make it look nice and neat. Clip it off. In case you're wondering, I use Gavit pre-tinned cloth covered wire. Not for any tonal purposes. It does nothing to do with the tone. It's more to do with, because see how I can bend it and it stays and it looks nice? That's why I use it. Take your other capacitor lead. This is called upcycling or whatever you call it. And I use this for my other boom. And the other side. Boom. I think I need to eat breakfast. A little shaky. Okay. Now that looks nice and neat. So now we have that part complete. So now we need to put on the output jack. So it's going to go from there to about there. We'll call it. Some black and some white. Let's do the black first. Stick it in there, and then I actually solder the wire into the eyelet and the eyelet to the back of the pot in one shot, or some combination thereof. Just mostly so I don't overuse solder, and so I don't continually heat the components up over and over again, because these ones have bearings in them. Bourne's pots don't. So Bourne's pots have like a metal cap on the back, and this metal cap doesn't have anything to do with the mechanicals inside. So you can heat this up, I'm not going to say as much as you want, but you can heat this up and really not do any damage to the mechanicals. On a CTS, the shaft comes through the back, and there's a little, I don't want to say it's a bearing, but there's like a little bushing in there. And so if you continually heat this up over and over and over and over again, sometimes it can go bad for you. That's why a lot of times if you mod the guitar a bunch of times, your pots will start to get scratchy. Or they can. Alright, I don't like the way CTS tins their eyelets, so sometimes this gives me trouble. So I take it a little slower with CTS eyelets. Sometimes you end up with a cold solder, but we did not that time. Okay, so let's twist this up and make it neat for no other reason but to just make it neat. People think there's some big noise reduction thing there and whatever, but in that length of wire it wouldn't make that much difference. Okay, let's get these tools out of the way that we don't need, put those up. I'm going to show you another little trick here. So for our output jack, we use the pure tone output jacks. Again, no tonal reason, just because I like them and I think they grip the dude really good, and they are double nutted from the factory, so you can set them out however you want, so you don't have a problem with the cable in your jack cup. You can, do whatever you want depth-wise there. Okay, so the most important thing, one of the most important things about soldering is keeping things, I don't know why my audio is so hot today. Keeping things still. Enough heat with a good tool and keeping things still. These things can roll around on you quite a bit. So what I like to do is take a screwdriver and stick it through the jack like that. And what that does is it holds it still. Now it's not rolling around on you. And it'll work on a flat table too. It doesn't have to be in this little jig that I've got. This jig is actually for putting screws in a humbucker, but it's nice because it holds stuff still for me. All right. Pull that out. Set that to the side. And here we have our completed Telecaster wiring harness. Pretty cool. So there you go. It's what we do. And this will drop into basically any Telecaster, save for the little things that we talked about earlier. So I want to make sure that you know about those. Those are in the little FAQ section before. Let's go ahead and let's see. When soldering, what exactly do you heat up? Do you heat the wire up? Do you heat the solder or the metal? So we have a really good soldering course in the link below. Here's what I'm going to tell you in short. You want the component and you want the thing that you're soldering it to heat up at the same rate, and then add the solder afterwards. This is not welding. It's a chemical bond actually. So that's one of those things that you can you'll learn about if you take that course. What voltage should the cap be? Does not matter. We're dealing about 500 millivolts probably at the very most. This is like a 20 volt cap, I think. Oh no, this is a 200 volt cap. So there's a lot of misconceptions about caps, and what it really comes down to is people want the caps in their guitars to look cool, to be honest with you. So you can put whatever you want in there. It won't matter voltage wise. If you want to have like a big honking, cool looking cap in there that sits perfectly on the top of the pot, you can do that, it's no problem. Or you can use a 10 volt one. Doesn't matter at all whatsoever. Voltage does not matter. Yeah. But I know a lot of people do like to select a particular voltage so that it will, so that it sits and it looks nice in there. But it's no big deal. The only things on the back of a cap that matter are the value. We have a video on this, but I like to go, so the value on the material doesn't even really matter that much. I mean, people can there's all kinds of videos about this, and we have a really good one about this, but let me just say this. If you spend $18 for a capacitor, there are probably many other $18 things that you could have spent on your guitar that would have made way much difference, like a guitar lesson. Caps, tone, wood, finish. You could go down a whole rabbit hole and argue about it forever and ever and ever. And while those other people are arguing on the internet, you could be enjoying yourself. So don't stress about that. There's two numbers that matter on a cap. The value, 15, 22, 33, 47 are the most common. And then the J, the letter after the value. So if you look at the back of a cap, it's going to say, this one says 153J. 15 is the value. The 3 is the multiplier, meaning it's 0.015 because it moves the decimal point 3 places to the left. Then the J is the tolerance. And the tightest tolerance is A. The loosest, crappiest tolerance is Z. J and below is where I like to stay because I believe that's 5 or 10%. If you get above that, the values can drift around so much that you can actually feel it or hear it. So if you buy cheap capacitors off of Amazon, oh look, I got a whole container of them for X amount of dollars. Look at the letter on the tolerance. It'll be like L and M, and they'll be like 20%. It'll be terrible. So don't spend bajillions of dollars, but at least get the tolerance down to a good level. 5 or 10% is good. So there you go. Very cool. Very, very cool. I dig this conversation. And we did the entire thing in 30 minutes. Thank you so much for hanging out today. I wanted to share this with you. This one actually hasn't sold yet because I made that one to ship, and now this one is just for demo purposes. So the next person that orders this, I'll be able to put it straight in the box, and it will go out to you. If you have any questions about this, get in the comments. You can join Patreon. We go way deep on this stuff on our monthly hangouts and whatever else we do over there, as well as some of the wiring diagrams and some of the other resources. Our soldering course, if you want to learn how to solder, to do this yourself, or you can buy the preset kits at Dylan Talks Tone. We will see you at 4 p.m. Eastern Time today for the Just Gonna Say It podcast. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us, and we will see you soon.